Hey everyone, thank you so much for being with us these past 7 days on the Realign with the Divine Challenge. Today we're talking all about the crown chakra today with Vanessa. Vanessa, do you want to just give us a little intro, who you are, what you do?
Sure. Thank you so much. As you said, my name is Vanessa. So hello, fellow sisters. I am one with everything, right? So I teach meditation, I teach yoga, I lead retreats. I pretty much help women and men just connect to themselves, reconnect back to the essence that we all are. And I do it through different modalities. So, like I said, it's yoga, meditation, breath. A really big one for me is dance. So, like ecstatic dance and just allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to be free, is really big for me. But yeah, so I kind of teach a little spiritual connection with all these different modalities.
Yes, I feel like I love hearing you talk on spirit, like whenever you're going off on your stories or you're just kind of like channeling a message that needs to come through. I always feel like it's so potent and so full of like wisdom in such an easily digestible way. I think that sometimes we can get like really heady when we talk about spirituality and like our connection with the divine. And it's challenging, to like put words to something that can't really be explained. But I think that you do such a really great job of just like embodying that wisdom and being able to like assimilate and communicate it in a way that is just so accessible.
Thank you.
Um, so our first question, we've just been asking everyone this, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but how do you align with the divine? Like, what are some of your practices and your favorite ways of feeling connected to the one?
The one that we all are. So it was a journey to arrive, right? To remember. And I think that for everybody, it will arrive in the moment that they're ready to see. And I feel that also for each individual, different practices will resonate. So, like when I first started awakening, there was different things that I wanted to tap into, and then as I evolved, there's more things that align with as you evolve. But I think one thing that has always resonated with me, and it was a way that I connected before I even knew, was dance. It was movement in that way with music and just allowing yourself to be so present in the body, with the music, as essentially music is vibration. So it's hitting your body and you're just breathing and you're allowing yourself to move freely without thinking like, oh, does this look weird? And just expressing your body is such a beautiful way of connection. And I mean, I'll do it in my room. That's a practice that I do in front of the mirror with my eyes closed. And if I'm somewhere in a drum circle, like I'm just dancing for the divine. That's definitely one that's been with me for a while. When I kind of tapped back into it, because I kind of stopped dancing for a little, and that was when I was kind of like disconnected from myself, from my divine. And then when I tapped back into it, I was like, oh my gosh, I totally get this. This was always part of me, and I never even knew it. So now that's like a big one for me. Aside from that, I have my little morning I guess like routine meditation where I kind of like align myself and I talk to my energy inside, and then I talk to the energy outside. So I do that in the morning. I do it at night as well. I create like a protective shield around my body. Some moments it's just like I need to connect to breath, so I'll just sit and literally breathe. And then yoga. Yoga essentially is like dance because you're moving on your mat with whatever feels good. So it's definitely movement, breath, and meditation or prayer, whatever you want to call it. But speaking to that divinity, which is energy.
Can you talk a little bit more about like what you call on when you are speaking to that energy, when you're like talking to your higher self and just like that higher energy that we can all connect with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned the videos of me channeling whatever's coming through. And if you've noticed, a lot of my videos are done in the car. And I'm sure this
Yeah.
happens to a lot of us when we're driving. You're just like, oh my gosh, you're getting like these downloads. And I'm like, as soon as I park, I need to speak this out or I'm gonna lose it. Um, what was the question? Sorry, I think I
Like
rambled on.
no, totally okay. It's like what are some of the things that you like
Oh, that I
you
say.
ask yourself or you ask like the higher power?
For sure. So something that really shifted for me was obviously working with shadows, right? being able to see like what's unknown. Essentially, a shadow is just something that we're not aware of, so it's in the dark. But as soon as we see it, it becomes light, so it's no longer a shadow. So working through that, um, when I started to really speak to the energy, which essentially everything's energy, right? We're one with all, there's no separation. So we have energy in our body, there's energy outside of us. How you manifest things into your three-dimensional realm is by speaking to it. So when I wake up in the morning, before even I'll just get out of bed, I'll do my thing, I come right back in my room and I just stand like in um, a standard position, and I just close my eyes and I'm like, all right, like talking to the energy. So I repeat 3 times, light body activate, light body activate, light body activate. And then from there, I kind of talk to the energy, like, okay, it's paying attention now. What do you want this energy to do? So I kind of move it through my body. So I tell it activate through every single cell in my body, every single cell of my DNA, and then I go up my chakra system. I go from my root, solar plex, root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, crown, pineal gland, my brain, and then I create a protective shield around my body, creating a golden aura, and then I tell the energy to not allow any lower frequencies to enter into my field, and if it comes this way, I send it with love, and then I reclaim my royalty, and I feel that being like just like totally, it's just like on me, and I'm like, I am ready for the day. Let's go. And it's literally, just like we can train a dog or an animal, it's energy. So if we are not telling it what to do, it's like it's just scattered. So when we start to talk to it and we start to step back in the space of like commanding the energy, then it starts to listen. It's like, oh, okay, cool, this is what we're doing. So it does respond when we are able to connect from that space.
Yeah, like kind of like giving it a container to vibrate in.
Yes,
Um,
for sure.
you had mentioned that you had like lost your divinity for a little bit, and it's been like a journey of re-remembering. Can you like talk a little bit about that, and like some of the standout moments to you that like really brought you back?
For sure. I think we've all been there, right? Like that's the journey in Earth School. It's like, all right, you got to forget everything to see how much you love yourself to remember. So I guess my spiritual awakening, where I had my first mystical experience, was in 2018. I was in a relationship that wasn't serving me, or actually he came to serve me, but in the moment there was just a lot of things where I wasn't speaking my truth. I wasn't doing the things that was in alignment with me. I was kind of really, throat chakra was closed. I was just closed with these old programs. And I remember I essentially I was dating this person and we were engaged to be married. And I was staying at my friend's house because I felt that I wasn't ready to be married, but I couldn't speak. And we were just fighting. And I was like, I need to just disconnect for a minute. So I went to my friend's house. She had an apartment in Brick when I stayed there. And I remember I was there for like a week and I was just crying. And I'm like, oh my God, like trying to just find an answer. And I was raised in a very strict religion. I was Jehovah's Witness. So, the mystical thing was totally not, it was like, that's the devil. And then I remember I was journaling, and I was journaling essentially what it began as was a letter to him of just like telling him how much I loved him and how much I just wanted like purity between us. And it ended up being a love letter to myself. And then when I finished writing it, I read the whole letter, and as soon as I finished reading the letter, I felt like somebody cracked an egg on my head, and I felt like this wave of like unconditional love all over my body that I just started crying and I could not stop. And I was like, oh my, and then I was like, what was that? And then I kind of got in this like fear because I was like, oh my God, I just felt something on me. What was this? Um, and I remember that whole evening, I was like, I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I don't know what happened. I was just like in this deep meditation and I felt like there was an energy. It felt beautiful, but I don't know what happened. And she's like, Vanessa, just pray. And then I remember I was afraid, right? Because I was raised in such a different space that that night I kept asking, I'm like, if this is not God, if this is not a divine light energy, please give me a sign, give me something. And nothing came through for like weeks. And I was like, all right, I'm going to follow this. But I remember after that mystical experience, like the next day, I felt so free that I felt like a child. Like I just wanted to love everything. I was like, what just happened? Oh my God. So that was like my first mystical experience. But regardless of that experience, that kind of tapped me into like, okay, there's something in this thing of energy. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something here. I still went along and I got married with this guy, and we were married for like 5 years. But during the marriage, right, I wasn't ready to be married, and not that it was not ready to marry him. I wasn't ready yet. And when he proposed, I couldn't even say it. I was like, oh, and I said yes because I didn't want to make him feel bad. I didn't want to like hurt his feelings. So from the beginning, I was already out of my alignment. So the mess that came after that was like as soon as I said yes or whatever I said, I felt my whole body was like, oh my gosh, get ready for what's about to happen. And I was out of alignment. And that was essentially my lesson was, or this, this earth time was to learn to speak my truth. And during that relationship, I was so trying to fix and force that I disconnected from dancing. Like I never danced. I never danced. And I realized it was because I was so disconnected from myself that didn't even come into my space like at all. And it wasn't until I tapped into like yoga and I really had another mystical experience there, then I was like, okay. But I really, really didn't start implementing dance until we finally like split up and got divorced. And when I started to dance again, I was like, oh my gosh, like, whoa. It was like this, like, oh my God, you've always been here. Where did you go? Woof. It was so powerful, so powerful. But then I kind of connected the dots and I was like, damn, I was so disconnected and my masculine energy was so up here. My feminine was so down here that I wasn't even in my aura of like even thinking to dance as a way to connect or anything. So yeah, I was hanging on by a little thread and she's like, no, girl, we still here. Yeah.
It sounds like your mind was like completely disconnected from your body. And like once you were able to like speak your truth and, like finally open up and say what you needed to say, like that's when like things started to shift and you were able to like really drop into alignment.
For
I
sure.
just think that's such a powerful story. I think something that I really want to touch on and reiterate, like for anyone who's watching, is that like it is scary at first, like as you're opening to new energies and as you're like leaving the person you were behind and like growing into this new skin, like it's terrifying, and it might be like 10 steps forward and then like 20 steps back, it's like definitely not linear at all. And it can feel overwhelming. I can definitely say that like my experience with awakening has at times felt like so overwhelming. I just want to like give up, and like obviously you don't forever, but it's like, holy shit, like this is a lot. Like this is a lot of energy. This is a lot of responsibility. Sometimes I feel, like I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to take on all this responsibility. Like this is way too much truth. Like I can't handle it. Now all of a sudden I have to like speak it because that's my purpose now that I know. And like it can be like a lot. So, I'm sure
Sure.
Mackenzie you can probably agree that like awakening is a little bit of it can be like overwhelming and scary at first.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, especially like new energies, like because you're so used to being and feeling a certain way, and we're not almost like, well, we're programmed not to be in that joy and that love and that those like higher frequencies. So when it's like here within us and activated, we're kind of like, oh, holy shit, like, wait, is this okay for me to feel like this kind of? And so it's like you have that like battle a little bit with like that older version of yourself and that higher self who's trying to like bring you into that new timeline. And it's funny that you were talking about dance, but like it really is a dance, and that's like the best way to like tap into just that energy and to move into that like new timeline of activating those cells within. And just such a simple way we forget to just dance and have fun.
Totally. Yeah.
Dance and sing and connect
Mm-hmm.
with your community. Like I feel like for me, those are like really big pillars to like when I'm feeling most in alignment with myself, like when I'm able to connect with conscious community. And that was like a really big thing for me. Like when I first came to yoga, I was like doing it at 5 o'clock in the morning in my bedroom in college, and I was like so poor. I'm like, I'm not gonna go pay to do yoga somewhere. Like it just seems so corporate bullshit to me. So I had never really experienced like a yoga community until I did my 200-hour teacher training. And then I was just like, wow, I can't believe I've been so closed off to like letting people into my energy. I think I was scared, or like maybe it was like an ego thing going on, like I was having a battle with it. But yeah, it's just, I feel like dance and being able to sing, like that connects us with ourselves, but then having that like conscious community to like help us through those times, like when we are scared or we do have those breakthroughs and we just need to talk about them, or like we've come off the path, you know, like I know I've taken steps away from my highest self plenty of times and been like, okay, girl, I just need to be like here and doing this now. But like having that conscious community is really what has always brought me back and inspired me in those times when I am feeling low, because it's going to happen.
Absolutely. I totally agree about the community. I think it's because essentially we're all one, right? Oneness is what it is. And everybody's our mirror. So when we feel like we're kind of off and we're just like, oh, having a conscious community to kind of mirror back to you, like you are a divine being of light. Like remember, or just holding the space. It's like, damn, you're right. That like pulls you back. And a lot of people ask me, right, when they're just beginning to awaken, they kind of talk to me like, oh, I feel like I'm just like starting to awaken and I'm not fully on the other side, but I'm like in between. I always get the question of like, is it lonely? I'm like, hell no, it's not lonely. It's amazing over here. But I get it though, because you're just starting, right? You, I think it's not that it gets easier, but you kind of understand what's happening. So you kind of give yourself more grace. But when you're just first awakening, you're like, man, I don't even relate to these people. Like maybe your friend group changes and you're just like, the same things don't interest you. Your diet can change. Like a lot of shit can change because your whole entire energetic body is shifting. So it's like, but when you vibrate your new vibe, your tribe will find you. So it's like you continue to do that and you continue to attract that community and you're going to feel more welcome in that space because you're authentic versus trying to fit into something that you're no longer like energetically on that frequency.
I love that you said that, because like I definitely can relate to feeling like a little bit lonely in the beginning, you know, like being like, okay, like I feel like I'm shifting in the way that I'm seeing things. I'm shifting in my own vibration. I'm shifting in what I'm allowing in my energy, you know, and like creating boundaries. And that can go one of two ways. Like people can be like really respectful and honor that. But at the same time, people can be like, whoa, like she doesn't just let me walk all over her anymore. So no.
Sure.
And it's just like, but it's so true what you said, is that like when you're clearing that space, when you're clearing those people and those vibrations out of your life, now all of a sudden you're creating space to just like attract more people that are more aligned with the frequency that you're growing into. And I think we have to be like okay with letting old situations go and old people go with love. Like you said, like if that negative energy is coming to me, like I let it go with love. Like
Yeah.
it's no judgment. I understand that you're a divine being too. We're just not resonating at the same vibration anymore, and that's okay. No judgment, but
And even to go off what you're just saying right now, because a lot of people, right, that are have awakens and they're like on this path, and then they're like, oh my gosh, and they try to like talk to their friends and like push it, and like I'm like, girl, I've been there. Don't even try it because it's gonna go like this. They're not ready to receive it. So I tell them, I'm like, you have to almost like realize, or even people that are like still in a toxic cycle, right? Like maybe they're just going out drinking all the time and like that's cool and they're enjoying that, amazing, but you're not vibrating with that, then that should be okay for you. So it's like being able to see somebody, and like you said, you're a divine being as well, and maybe those people that are in like this talking like gossip and like that lower frequency energy, they're also a divine being, but they just maybe can't see it, you know? And it's like, if they can't see it, you can't show it to them, but they're going to be able to feel it by you holding the frequency of the light and the love and being that mirror. And they're either going to be resistant to you and be like, oh, or they're going to be inspired. But you trying to force them and going into that space, it's only going to make them resist more. So it's
yeah.
like, you have to see it and acknowledge like, hey man, you're just like me and you can't see it, but I'm in my royalty. You can meet me over here.
I love that. I think that's really
Mhm.
powerful. And I think that it can be really challenging, especially like in the beginning, to not like revert back to those old ways and hold your vibration strong, like the way that you've like cultivated it with all of your practices, and, you know, not getting back in those circles and choosing not to gossip. And or whatever it is, you know, whatever you're being challenged with in the moment. But it's just like making you a little bit stronger, and also like holding that space. So if the person that you love, you want them to like elevate with you, it's like just being able, because we are like, we're vibrational beings, you know, like we can either vibrate together in harmony, or we can vibrate apart, and either way, like it's fine. but
Yeah.
but there is like a way that we can raise people up just by being who we are. You know, I'm sure so many of us can think of people in our lives who, when we talk with them, or when we're just like in their energy, like no matter how terrible of a day we're having, like we leave there feeling refreshed, we leave there feeling elevated. And it's like, do you want to be like, do you want to be liked for lowering your energy, or do you want to like risk, you know, people not vibrating at the same speed of you, but like holding your ground?
And I got a really beautiful download on like the last medicine journey that I went on. And it was literally be it, be the light, be the love. Like just hold that energy. And in any room you walk in, any person that you talk to, you're gonna like give them some of that energy. And it's like, wow. And they're gonna feel that connection to the divine, because maybe they're not as connected, or they're kind of like wishy-washy, and like shit, by just talking to you, they're reminded like, damn, and they're attracted to that energy because they're also that. So you're literally a mirror. So it's just like, as if you can just hold it and be it, and realize what if people are either on your frequency or they're just lost. Like, okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna walk around here and talk to these people, and if I see that they're lost, I'm just gonna hold it right here until they can see it. And it's like, damn, great. And then you, by inspiring that person and making them feel better, then the person they talk to, and then whoever they talk to, like you start spreading it out. So it's like, if you can be that frequency, enough people will like feel it, and then as a collective, we continue to like raise up.
Yeah, and like make waves, you know, it's those little ripples that make waves. And I think that's so true. And I feel like that's been like such a common theme for me as I've been like preparing this challenge, and you know, collaborating with other people. It's like we all have such a strong message to share that's kind of like that goes against the grain, you know, it's like waking people up to remembering like their true essence. And um that's like been a very recent thing. Like people are just finally waking up now. And I just feel like those like ripple effects that we create just by being who we are and being connected to like our inner world, and you know, like the higher power all around us, it really is like the way to make those waves. It doesn't matter like even what you're saying, you know, just like being at that vibration and raising people up with you is how we change the world. It's like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world. You know, it's kind of like cliche, but it's so true.
True. It's so powerful. And I think that's also why it's so beautiful to have like a community, or work with like a mentor, because when you're just starting to shift that, it's like you can fall back, and it's like, oh, and it's like you're in this like in between thing. But if you have a conscious community that's already in that space that you want to continue to vibrate at, they kind of keep pulling you there, and you're like, I'm not alone here. Like, okay, cool. This is normal. This is supposed to be happening. I'm supposed to be feeling like all these waves. And it is because we're learning to now not let the mind control us, like the ego, right? We're learning how to take the space of the commander and be able to use the mind for our advantage and not let it run the show. But it's gonna be like, oh, it's like, okay, I hear you. So it keeps coming up until again we like train the energy and we realize like, okay, cool. And what I've learned along the journey of like awakening, right? Because we continue to evolve. Um, in the beginning, I felt like it was not that it was harder, but it was, I guess, more confusing. I was just like, what the hell is happening? And now I feel like I'm in a space where I'll feel the emotions come through. Like right now we have a new moon tomorrow, and there's like the south and north node are transitioning signs. Like there's a lot of energy. So I've been feeling a little bit more introvert, and I'm about to get my moon. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I am honoring that space. So I create a container for myself to feel, to be with myself. And I know that there's a shift happening. And instead of like freaking out, like, and like placing my attention on the 3-dimensional, I'm just like, okay, we got to go inward and see what's here, see what wants to come through. Okay, let's nurture the heart. Like, what's here? And then it eventually will like come onto the other side. So instead of like, you know, when you're just awakening that you feel maybe like you're going crazy, or you're like, what is this? You kind of give yourself a little bit more grace. But I've totally been on the same page where there's been so much coming through that I'm like, am I just like a fraud here? Like, I'm just like, I quit. I quit. But then it's like in those moments is where you completely surrender, and it's just like, it allows you to bring everything back. So it's like a beautiful journey with yourself. And I think it's like the more that you work with yourself through these emotions and through this journey, you really start to fall in love with yourself, and you're like, damn, and you give yourself more grace. And it's like the journey is what allows you to like fall in love. And then you're like, wow, I'm really my best friend. Like, this is awesome.
I agree. I feel like all of our hardships and all of our emotions are just kind of like our guides back to ourselves, and like to accepting ourselves for how we show up every single day a little bit differently, like just giving ourselves grace to be able to honor that. Like, we're not supposed to be like happy and productive and like social every single day, and we've kind of been conditioned in this society, going to school or to work 5 days a week. It's like you're expected, like no matter what's going on at home, to show up and put on a smiling face and leave whatever's going on outside of work or outside of school or whatever, but like as we awaken, I feel like we start to see that it's more like seasons, or cycles of things. Like we have to, just like nature that we're a part of, or even like the cosmos, everything goes in seasons and cycles, and we can choose to like fight against it, or we can choose to honor it. And obviously, like one is a little bit more like expansive energy, whereas the other one is like a little bit more like constrictive and like fighting ourselves, like fighting our own nature.
I'm so happy that you said that actually. So my retreats, I call them like nature knows, because we are nature and nature is the way. And if you look at nature, it's like, damn, okay, the leaves fall off, like, so that's teaching us to let go, right? And the seasons come that teaches us that we need to continue to change. Like, damn, now I lost what I was gonna say.
Just about nature knows it's your retreat.
I know.
Theme.
Okay, I got it. Thanks. So because nature, right? Like if we go to the grass, we get an electric charge from the earth in our bodies. So I tell people all the time, like your body is a container, right? What appears to be a physical form of energy. So energy, think about a battery. It has negative charge and positive charge. So as the human experience, we have both charges in our body, and both want to be experienced. So when you have this beautiful emotions of joy and happiness and pleasure, like, oh my God, life's amazing, beautiful, you're letting yourself experience it. But what has happened, I feel like, for however long, is that every time we get a negative charge, right, a feeling of like fear, whatever it is, it's like, we don't want to feel it, so we like push it down, we push it down, we push it down, and our bodies have been so stuffed with negative charges that it causes what we identify as depression, anxiety, like all these things, because we haven't given ourselves a space to feel the emotion. And understanding that if you're feeling an emotion, I am feeling fear, I am not the fear, I am not the anger, I'm feeling it. So be like, whoo, step back as the witness, give yourself the container, like, okay, what's the fear here? We're angry, all right, let's yell, let's let it out, let's move it out. Like, and the more that you allow yourself to feel freely the negative charge and the positive charge, then you become like this channel that energy just flows through you, like it flows through everything else. So that I think I read that about the positive, I was like, this is so fucking powerful. And then I kind of like went into it, and I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. But yeah.
I was just actually talking to my boyfriend about this morning, because our retreat's in Nicaragua, and he's like, he knows that I'm kind of like a freaky flyer, like I don't really like to fly on planes that much. I just like can't wrap my head around why they work. I feel like it's like a surrendering of my power, like it's like everything's like all my little shadows are all wrapped up in why I do not like to fly. And I was like, yeah, like I'm just gonna be scared, and that's okay. Like I can feel fear, and I can let it go with love, like I can give myself something else to focus on. Like when I feel fear, I do mantra, like give myself something like divine to resonate with, instead of allowing myself to sit in that fear. And it was really cute. He's like the softest, sweetest person. He was like, I think the universe rewards courage. And I was like, it's really true. It really is. Like when we allow ourselves to feel fear, to feel sadness, to like really resonate in those lower frequencies, or like what we experience as lower emotions. I wouldn't say they're really lower frequencies, because I feel like they all kind of like have their own purpose for us. But we're rewarded for it, whether it's just like a physical release or like an emotional release that helps us feel light, or like chasing our dreams even though they scare the fucking shit out of us, or like finding our edge in a yoga pose. Like it's all about like expanding and growing and being okay with feeling those discomfortable, like uncomfortable feelings.
Absolutely. And the way that I teach yoga and a lot of things, right? Like we have this idea of perfectionism, like, oh, we don't do anything because we feel it. And I was identified as a perfectionist like forever. My mom told me that. I was like, why would you put this program in my brain? But that's such a like a fucked up thing that we tell ourselves. So that ego is like, oh well, I'm not doing the thing because I'm a perfectionist and I still have to get all these things done, and that's just like a dumb excuse. So when I teach class, I even say beforehand, I'm like, I teach a challenging class because I want you to notice where you resist going beyond a pose or going beyond something because it looks difficult and you're like, well, it's not perfect, so I'm just gonna hold it right here. Like just do the thing and you're gonna see like in class, right? How you show up on your mats, how you show up with everything. And the same thing when it's coming to chasing your dreams, right? Like actually creating them. It's like, oh my God, oh, I'm doing the thing. Oh, and you're like right up against it. And fear, as we know, right? It's a false evidence appearing real. The thing is that we are an infinite divine being. We are perfection at our core. Like everything that we want is, we're here on earth to create our heaven on earth. So fear is the mind cannot perceive what's beyond it. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't know. It only knows what's familiar. So if you're able to come right up against the fear, like, well, I'm facing it right here and we're going to keep going, then the beautiful fear just goes, bloop, and the illusion like fades. And then you go on to the other side. And that's when the expansion happens in a pose, when you're chasing your dreams, whatever it is, it's like, keep going. When the fear is there, it's like, oh shit, I'm feeling it. I know there's going to be something beautiful right on the other side. And then you let yourself feel it and damn, then you're like free. And so
That's kind
powerful.
of like wisdom that I always remember when I'm trying to, because I feel like, I'm sure Mackenzie, you feel this way too. I think especially as women, like we're conditioned to believe that like we have to show up and like look a certain way and act a certain way. And, you know, like when we step out of our bounds, like, or we show up too much or we show up as not enough, like there's like judgment, you know, like that's very, I feel like condition, like so societally that's been like very conditioned in us. Um, but like we were talking about nature and how we are nature, and one thing that like I love the most about nature is it's chaos, you know, it's imperfect. Like trees grow like crazy, flowers grow like crazy, like, and that's the when it's the most beautiful, you know, like I don't find it beautiful when everything's like perfectly in place. And you know, like I love the chaos of nature, and that's something that I always remind myself when I'm like trying to show up for something and feeling fear. It's like show up messy, show up imperfect. Like that is what it's all about. You know, it's that authenticity that is magnetic and that is beautiful. And when we try to make everything so perfect and so organized and like put everything in its perfect box and place, it's like that's when we don't move forward and we can't expand. But like it's in that imperfection that like we recognize like our true nature, really.
Absolutely. And even thinking, right, if there is any real perfection, it is nature and it is the cosmos and it's a fucking mess and it's beautiful. So we are that. So it's like allow yourself to be in that. And you're right, we have been conditioned, I think, especially as women in that way. And I something that I also heard, and it's very true. The more free that you can be in your own skin and whatever you do, you give permission for others to also do the same. And some people are gonna be again resisting, like, oh my gosh, but it's like do it anyways because the right people will be inspired by that because you're just shining light on something that they still haven't accepted within themselves. So the
Yeah.
chaos and the freedom is the wild, man.
Yes, I love that. I
Mhm.
feel like it's like when people, if someone's judging you, it's because they haven't accepted what you've accepted within themselves. And the more that you show up and the more that you trigger them into that place of judgment, the closer they are to realizing, like, whoa, this is actually something that I've packed away deep within me that maybe I need to like bring to the surface and let go.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of people either won't do it and they're just like, oh, and they'll cut you off and they'll go the other way. But the people that are showing up and doing the work are going to know that. Like any trigger that you have, that's like a message for you. Like I love triggers. I'm like, why is this triggering me right now? Like, let me sit in this space. Like, what are you here to show me? So it's like that is if you're in the space of like doing the work and going down that rabbit hole that's like never ending, you just start to twist the plot. Like you know that nothing is like to take nothing personal and that everybody's your mirror. So it's like, how am I responding to that? Why is that affecting me this way? Sit in that, and then it'll come to light.
I feel
Mhm.
like that's very much like crown chakra work is like seeing how you can see yourself and like where you need to grow in others, you know, because like because we are all one. So if we're judging each other, you're just judging yourself, like just by that logic, you know. And when you can finally like see yourself in others, that's when you can see like, okay, it's not me being triggered, it's something that needs to come up for me instead of like me being mad at this, you know. That's when you give your power away and like you kind of stop learning from those uncomfortable experiences.
And you get into victim versus stepping into your divinity. Yeah.
I'm so sad we only have 1 more minute.
Yeah.
But Vanessa, I wanted to give you some space to talk about like how people can work with you before we sign off.
If not, you can just write it in the comments.
Okay.
um, but yeah, you can work with me. I do private coaching. I do private meditation. I do private plant ceremonies. I also do retreats, and then I do 1-day retreats in Miami as well. So you can catch me on the website at b1byv.com or follow my Instagram. I usually post all my stuff on there as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on here
Yes,
with us.
thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you so much.